And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me. There's a PayPal link down below for anybody who wants to share some love. And of course, the StreamYard link is pinned for anybody that wants to join the panel. We're going to go over some predatory policing again in the Insanity Shorts. The first one I want to talk about is a situation down in Phoenix. So let's take a look at it. This is a investigation of Phoenix settling a wrongful conviction lawsuit that exposed Brady List failures. In other words, officers that have already had a record of moral turpitude that says they're not qualified or competent to maintain a position of public trust as one of those public servants, then they're supposed to be put on a list so that if they go forward to another agency, that agency has the availability of a list of officers that they really should think twice about hiring. But Phoenix doesn't seem to think that's pertinent.
It's 7-0.
With a quick vote, Phoenix City Council ending a major lawsuit, a $650,000 settlement.
First of all, I'd like to mention in relation to that major lawsuit term, again, like I said the other day in the indemnification video, if their surety bond is $75 million, that's the minimum. If they, you want to play this gamble game with me, you make that kind of a bet, I'm going to call you and raise you double. $650,000 ain't no major payout.
Settlement now going to Frances Salazar. She's a grandmother who spent nearly 2 years in prison, wrongfully convicted because police hid.
2 years for $650,000. That's not including the years prior that it took these people to get her convicted first. So it was the extensive litigation that they went through to make sure that she got imprisoned, which was, of course, taxpayer expense. And then, of course, when she got out, taxpayer expense. Or was it? Did it all actually come from her estate? See, these are the questions I question, or these are the questions I ask about this monetary system and how it works. If you're truly the owner, then where is it they're getting everything to begin with to push this shit in their administrative courts?
Their officers' history of lying.
I mean, what they did to me is wrong, period, all the way around.
Absolutely. Greetings, brother. How you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Good.
Just going over some more of these insane events that we're going through in our life. And this just shows, as many as I've been showing lately, it just goes to show I'm not the only one. And we have to come to a realization that even though we're supposed to forgive them for they know not what they do, there comes a point where they have to start learning that. And how do we impose that? And that's, again, because we're the true owner, we have to step up and take that responsibility. We can't just sit in that beneficiary chair and expect everything to be given to us. So with being a beneficiary, there comes a obligation as well. And that's an inherent and natural obligation to look out for yourself, govern yourself.
I concur.
Our mission is to stand for what's right, no matter the pressure or the pushback or how long it takes.
It's why Chief Investigator Dave Biscobine spent the past 4 years covering what happened to Frances. And Dave's here now with the kind of reporting you're only going to see right here on ABC 15.
And this goes to one of the main reasons why I do these reviews like this now, is because I'm learning very well how to stand up for myself and pose it. And so these reviews, me taking upon my obligation to myself is now extended in my freedom of speech and freedom of expression to assert that right. But now I understand a greater obligation is to you people. So please, again, don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. I'm just showing the things that I've researched and giving my interpretations and opinions so you can follow up on your research with what I believe to be a better perspective on how things should be. And again, it goes to that moral aspect.
Now, a lot of time has passed since this case began, but it's important to know how we got here because it ended up being about so much more than just one case or just one officer. It helped
everybody similarly situated, where we come against police officers that are corrupt to the core, and we have a system who believes that letting those people that are corrupt to the core exist in their system because they have some kind of need to fill a position, and so they're willing to even pay for it. So there's another taxpayer expense that comes prior to any lawsuits that then be litigated under taxpayer expense to then be settled later on for false litigation, again, at taxpayer expense. Again, where does all that come from to begin with?
expose Arizona's broken Brady-less system. It put the police chief under oath. It exposed Phoenix PD had no clue or care about a basic constitutional right.
So this is why we're talking about their policies for your safety. That's their main policy, is for the general good of the public at large. So they're looking out for your safety, yet at the same time, they don't understand that concept, and they use it as a violent tactic against you. Again, my opinions from my firsthand experiences, as well as viewing other people's firsthand experiences and then giving my commentary on them. This is knowledge that we need to get digging into so we can help educate these people on what they really do need to know. These kids growing up wanting to be a police officer, I don't know many that grow up and find out that the police officer job is what they thought.
And it exposed how hard the city would fight to defend an officer with a history of lies and sex assault allegations.
It was devastating. It was worse than a nightmare. I mean,
it was August 2020, our first report on Frances Salazar and her case.
It's hard to put it to words.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give will be the truth.
Frances spent 22 months in prison for alleged drug possession. The conviction based solely on the testimony of Officer Anthony Armour. There was no video, no pictures, no drug tests, or any physical evidence.
You have an officer who got on the stand. That's it. End of inquiry.
After 2 years, a judge tossed Frances's conviction. The court found out Armour was a documented liar, and before Frances's trial, Phoenix PD did not disclose that he falsely arrested a different woman and lied.
Did not disclose. That's unconscionability at its highest. This, in my opinion, is sedition, and the judges that litigated through this and the attorneys and everybody, that's treason, conspiracy, RICO, the whole 9 yards. Again, where are all these funds coming from? And if they're doing this to generate those funds or to save their job so that they can go home with that paycheck that is thereby funded, that's RICO.
About the circumstances. We aired Frances's story as part of a larger ABC 15 investigation.
Dave Biscobing continues full disclosure, his year-long investigation exposing Arizona's broken Brady system.
The Brady list is supposed to track officers with a history of lies.
And it's not the system that's broken, folks. The system was implemented for a reason, and that reason is to hold these people accountable, and it will work if we start learning how to hold these people accountable. That's the part that's broke. Again, I was a bitch-ass slave. I used to be the fucking fool. It's time to start learning through our education that that's what our life is about, is to gradually continue to grow and learn, because that's the only thing that helps us get better. If we keep going into this insane loop of doing the same thing over and over again and never learning from our experiences, we continue to do the same thing day in and day out, day after day, year after year. I'm just doing my job.
lies, crimes, and other integrity concerns. It gets its name from the 1963 case, Brady v. Maryland. The Supreme Court ruled negative information like that needs to be disclosed in criminal cases. But because
So 60 years of being implemented, and we're still having this issue. It's like the plastic straws out in California almost. You can implement something, but does it really do any good? If you implement something that isn't sound to begin with, does it do any good? So the problem that I see with the Brady Act is, again, that it's a statutory code that's regulated for those people that are involved and not the beneficiaries. And that's the main problem. The beneficiaries have to know this stuff so that they can hold them accountable. Otherwise, the police are just going to police themselves and say, oh, we found we didn't do anything wrong.
Because it wasn't in cases like Francis's, we decided to compile and publish the first ever statewide Brady list. And we've been updating it ever since. It's now got more than 1,800 names.
Confirming deeply disturbing new.
That's in Arizona alone. 1,800 in Arizona alone. How many are there nationwide? And how many of them make up that police force? And how many of them haven't been reported?
Details about that officer, Anthony Armour. He's been accused of sexual assault multiple times.
Which brings up another aspect of this and the thing about the auditing. And that's why I urge people to really learn how this auditing works and to get the proper aspect. And I think one of the best ones out there is audit them or audit the audit, one of the two. He goes in and he simply does freedom of information requests for their signage and postage, posters that are supposed to be out in public view for their charters. And that's what I'm talking about, is going after that corporate fiction and piercing that corporate veil. Those rules apply to them. And if they're not following them, then what makes you think they're going to follow the law in respects to yourself? No moral turpitude.
After reporting on Francis's case, we quickly discovered a lot more about that officer's past. 2 women, including a fellow cop, say he sexually assaulted them, but Phoenix cleared Armour each time. Now, our reporting put a lot of pressure on Phoenix PD, and it led to an interview with then Police Chief Jerry Williams.
And attorneys say how the chief did respond shows she has, quote, no idea about how the Brady system works.
We found that it was, as of last year, about between 100 and 110 active Phoenix officers were on the Brady list.
In Phoenix Department alone, over 100. Over 100 just in the Phoenix Department. I think that's probably close to what we've got here in Waterloo. We've got a staff of public officers of approximately 130 officers. And I'm going to say over 100 should be on the Brady list. Greetings, Brother Russ. How you doing today?
Good. Hope everyone's doing well.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about that?
I feel that that's a process that's been set up to make sure that the Maricopa County Attorney's Office and the prosecutors can engage in asking people questions during the voir dire process.
Voir dire has nothing to do with Brady. It's jury selection.
Tonight, it's the Phoenix Police Chief, like you.
Shows how little they understand it. It's not about your testimony on the stand as an officer in a trial before a jury, but rather your testimony under oath that you took to employ that office so you could get paid for that office. And if you're going to continue to lie, steal, cheat, rape, rob, and pillage the very people that pay you, then who the fuck do you think you are? A bunch of narcissistic authoritarians that think they know the law well enough because they were given a badge and they're just doing their job and their boss will back them up. And their boss don't even know. It's pathetic. and it's endemic throughout the entire government.
You've never seen her before, on camera and under oath.
Chief Williams was deposed because of Francis's lawsuit. We got a copy of the tape.
Chief Williams, do you know anything about my client, Francis Salazar? Do I know anything about who and who?
And whether she actually knew about Francis or not, her lawsuit forced the chief to answer questions about our reporting and why she's
the chief of police. She should know all of her employees. And in all of her employees and knowing the interactions and specific cases that come up to grave political points and civil rights issues, you would think she'd be on top of it. Because again, she's the principal for her subordinates, and she is ultimately liable under that surety bond. Agents act for principal, and principals are just as liable for the acts of their agents.
He didn't know how the Brady list worked.
I indicated to you before, I misspoke when I talked to ABC 15. I should have left.
Doesn't know how the Brady list works. Again, it's been implemented 60 years, and you don't know. It should be a requisite, just like the oath, letting people know that if you break that oath and you get put on that Brady list, guess what? You likely won't get hired again. This is why I say the Brady list isn't so much of an effect, but if we start placing those indemnification bonds, I think that would have a much greater effect. Because now you can go after the whole 73 million or whatever it is for that surety bond that covers all of them. Double it up and say now you're all responsible. So even the good officer that failed to report the bad officers, you may not be such a good officer. That's misprison of felony.
As chief of police, are you expected to have a working knowledge of Brady? Chief of police, I'm not to be the subject matter expert on Brady list.
The evidence turned over in Francis's lawsuit also.
But under 5 CFR, let me pull it up real quick for everybody, just so you know. 5 CFR 575.102 under a set of definitions, and this is for administrative personnel, Office of Personnel Management, civil service regulations, recruitment, relocation, retention incentives. This is the Brady list. Retention incentives. Do we want to hire him on? He just left another police force for some reason. Should we dig into that and find out? Nah, we've got a retention incentive. We're going to give him another incentive and keep him on board. Supervisory differentials. Again, notice to agent is notice to principal. Notice to principal is notice to agent. The supervisory differentials are across the board. Everybody should know their damn job. And that goes to competencies, means the knowledge, skills, abilities, behaviors, and other characteristics an individual needs to perform the duties of a position. And if you're going to deny one of your duties of being of moral ethics and make sure that you hire people of moral ethics, then you should be checking into the moral turpitude, the lack of morals. Just because they're wearing a badge doesn't mean a goddamn thing.
But I think if we cut the guys off at the top where they're doing the transfers, if you cut them off at the top, then it's over.
That's why I say if you go after the chief of police on this one, include her and that indemnity bond, doubling up their surety bond, I guarantee you every last one of them will likely fall in line. Because it's the surety company that's going to come and tell them, hey, we're not going to cover you anymore. That was pretty fucking egregious.
Right. You know how I've been digging into those Series 65 and 66 license and stuff? That's on the financial side. And these guys, the investment brokers that have to have that, and they also have to have, it's a CRD number. It's a central registration depository database of brokerage and securities firms. So, and if I was just looking at Iowa here, you got Bankers Life Securities, Inc. They're a bond and hold that CRD number. And also what that's Series 65 allows them to conduct business with the public.
Yeah, that's the same thing as the courts when they convert that last name to a firm name.
Right.
Like I said,
So
I
that's
don't
what
know if they're issuing that as a consultant firm, a investment firm, or as you said, a securities firm. I don't know. It just says
But as a broker, they can be either act in two ways. A stockbroker is the same as an investment advisor. You know how they play games. And that's the difference in the CRD number, because that broker obviously has to be a fiduciary capacity. You have AUMs and AUAs, which is assets under administration. And then you got AUMs, I believe, which is assets under management. And that one under management would seem to be one in fiduciary capacity.
Yep. And
what they're doing, they're creating through possessory and non-possessory action. So obviously possession, like car or whatever.
The holder.
And then the paperwork through liens. This is liens.
Yep.
So and that's the only way they can transfer that.
Right, and that surety bond is the lien itself for them. So the max amount, like I showed in the ones here, say it's 73 million, double it up, come back with 146 million. Call them and double them up. Now what happens is that surety company ain't got enough to pay it, and they'll go under if they don't, because you've got the biggest bet on the table. You called them. You called their bluff. Okay. Same thing. Corporate fiction says looking for righteousness from Satan's soldiers is foolish. ACAB, I can only presume that in this forum it probably means all cops are bastards. And looking for righteousness from Satan's soldiers is foolish is correct. But we're not looking for righteousness in their shit. What we're doing is rightly dividing the word of truth, showing that their shit is bullshit. That's why I said that Brady list really doesn't do much good for us. What does good for us is, I believe, is going to be putting a private placement of an indemnification bond where we hold the warrant. It's not up for sale.
You need to call their bond. You need to call their bond. And when you do that, when you call it, and it would be in a trust form, you give them notice on their bond, and you need to, in order to do that, you need to find the trustee and the indentured trustee of that trust, because it all forms under their trust. And when you attack that trust, it gets into spiritual stuff now. Because
wouldn't it be that whoever's running under that CRD number?
No, it's the SEC agreement that's going to have the trust.
Well, it's also tied to the SEC. That's part of it. It allows them to bounce in and out.
Right, but they're not. But listen, they're not the holder of the position of indentured trustee. That's why you have to go to the SEC agreement, find out who the indentured trustee is, and contact them.
And the trustee through notice. Notice. And you would form your own. Right. That's what we're the creators.
That's probably Securities America Advisors.
You can find all this under the Security Exchange.
You go to the SEC
agreement.
Yeah, you can go to the SEC. SEC's got a site you can look them up on. I'll have to see if I
in '94.
I'll have to look it up and drop it one of these times. But there's an SEC site.
Not currently an exempt reporting advisor. So.
Right, and there's
only looking for the trustee and the indentured trustee. Fuck everything else in that site. Once you get that indentured trustee and that trustee, from that point, they have their own they'll have a webpage, believe me, under their own trust. They have their set of guidelines and rules, which when you do this, they're not gonna relinquish that unless it's some small podunk deal. But when you go after counties, states, and the government, they will eliminate the bad, which is good for us. They will eliminate.
Right. And when you look up, if you get on that SEC site, like I said, I'll have to find the link and drop it one of these times. But there's an SEC link that you can put in the company's name, and they'll tell you where those documents are. And you look up the SEC EX 4.1 on them, and that's the indenture trustee. It'll give you the indenture trustee. Now, just like that SEC agreement that we saw the other day, they'll also have an indemnification, some indemnification clauses in there too. Go through, read those indemnification clauses, and find out how they're worded, so you can come back with your own indemnification. Contact that indenture trustee, and they should be writing you a check.
Do you know the difference between indentured and trustee and indentured? I'm asking, or if anybody.
The indentured trustee is the one that is on record. All others are presumed to be trustees, and this is the public service side. They don't recognize themselves as trustees because their job title is different. It doesn't say trustee. It says manager or something like this, or secretary. Those are all trustee positions with a different title. So it's implied that they're trustees. The indentured trustee is the one named trustee and is likely going to have that signature marked with a slash, a backward slash, with a S and another backward slash, showing that they're signing in that signified capacity.
The indentured trustee, they're all trustees that are listed are indeed, in fact, trustees. The indentured trustee is the one that has the ability to speak. I just keep it easy, and perform the acts. So when you put them on notice, just remember that they're the ones, the only ones. The other ones, they don't see you as anything but a corpse, a corporation.
Right, and that's why they're just doing their job, because they can't do anything else.
If we get a car, we're talking a car, a house, I don't care what we're talking as property goes. What holds the value in this is the document. It's the paper. It's our
the intrinsic
signature.
Right, the intrinsic value you put into it.
That is what they're fighting for. Believe me, it's not the car in the driveway or any of that shit. The house.
Yeah, it's like I said before. You're not buying the car. You're buying the contract. And in that contract, you're buying the liabilities. It's an insurance and tax scheme.
Yeah, big time. But
what it seems that I see how it's working there with these brokers are, though, they're acting as advisors outside of their brokers in the communities with these local municipalities, because they're also and they could be in a position overseeing the administrative bonds. There are securities, administrative securities on the administrative side. So they're in bed locally, it would appear.
Right. I agree. Like I said, I got that document from the clerk of court. It says right on it, firm name, obligor.
Right. So whoever's holding these Series 60, well, they changed it. See, there's a Series 63 and then there's a Series 65. Now there's a Series 66, which combines both the 63 and the 65. But, it still is what it is. That allows them to work with the public and things and other things.
Well, it's like that SEC agreement that we saw the other day where he said that it was for offering for private and public, to deal with the private and public. And that's what that 65 is. It's merging the 63 and 66 so they can deal in both public and private.
What I found in Carrollton here, is because you can go to broker, check, whatever, and look up who's got these numbers, these license in these areas. There's one guy, but then he's tied to America Securities. And I noticed when I looked up Iowa a minute ago on there that American Securities is also in Waterloo.
Yeah.
So these guys are, I'm just going to say it seems to me these guys have been planted in these positions all over.
They all hold bonds.
Well, and they're the underwriters. They're the ones that learned they're the ones that learned the underwriting language. That's why I
So
say
you
it's
name that.
Isaiah 54. No tongue shall prosper against me. And I realized a long time ago this is an insurance and tax scheme. And that means somebody's underwriting something. And if taxes are duly paid by stamp and an obligation or other securities of the United States is stamps and other representatives of value, then the missing element is the other representative of value, and it needs to be stamped, sealed, and approved.
Some of the things in these license, though, Keith, in that promissory and non-promissory, there's a thing that they call, I don't know how to pronounce this, a Del Credere, Credere, which agency guarantees the credit worthiness of a buyer and in case of default assumes the risk posed to the seller. Sounds like the prosecutor in the court.
Well, it actually, to me, it sounds like in God we trust, because credere means to believe.
In Italian, it means to believe in.
Right, which is
so they believe in those securities to be a good investment. He's advising the local people in the communities,
which is the root of credit.
It's insane, man, what these guys are doing.
Yep. So let's continue on. Yeah, you're the real credit. You're the one that has to get them to believe. And they're the ones that believe in that scripture so much, and that's why I use it against them. Because that's where it all trickles down from, is the belief.
It's written in everything. Yeah.
Yep.
It's written throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, everything is uniform the law is uniform throughout the jurisdictions. And if the law starts with a belief under the word, then you can believe that the rest of it is all belief. Comments are inventions, fabrications, and fictions. Your actions will speak louder than your words, because they will leave a footprint.
Misconduct files. The city waiting 200 days on average before submitting names for the Brady list.
They came to you and said, Chief Williams, it's taking on average 200 days for a Brady report that's finalized to get 10 CAO. What would you say to that?
So we have an investigation, an internal investigation into an officer that happens pretty much like a spot check, and says, oh yeah, he's fine. We investigated him, he's fine. That part of it probably happens pretty quick. But in situations where they actually do an investigation and it is drawn out, you got some time there then. And then once it's been determined, then they turn around and wait 3/5 of a year before they even let anybody else know. That's failure of notice. That's failure of notice.
All this time is coming out of us. I'll use me. It's coming out of my fucking bond. Because I'm paying for all this at this moment in time. Yeah.
And a lot of times they're still on the job. They don't get fired. They're still on the job. They get a mark on the Brady record, but they're still on the job.
Dance lemons.
Action assumes that's not in evidence, speculation, foundation, debate.
And during our reporting, we also learned the Department of Justice looked into Francis's case as part of their ongoing investigation into Phoenix PD.
I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I want there to be some kind of change.
A few more things to point out. Officer Armour is now retired. He left under a confidential.
And I'll remind you that Department of Justice, again, is the department that you use in the Supreme Court as co-trustee for equity access through common law. Well, that's the avenue of common law at the federal level, is Department of Justice and the Attorney General at the United States federal level, and that coincides with the administrative courts of the United States. So now you have the administrative, which is your statute, and now they have to concur, and that's why I mentioned that form AO 430. It says right on there, the defendant is the creditor.
In all cases.
Yeah, and so if he's the creditor, that's the credere. He's the one you're supposed to believe. He's the one that's coming against the presumption. And the only way you would believe him is if, coming against that presumption, he lays the supplemental facts that clearly express the truth.
Upon his document.
Can't be denied. My yay be my yay, my nay be my nay. Here's my balls. I'm going to put them on the table. Where's your testes? Can you testify?
Right. Being you brought up that word equity, again, those guys with those brokers, there's equity-based financial instruments, and those are what the stocks, ETFs, and the mutual funds, and obviously those would be of the fiduciary capacity. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, and
it is to me. So that would eliminate any alternative that they can play around with all of this other shit in their courts.
Well, anything they use to connect a living soul with anything else is based in equity. That means all things are based in equity in this system because they're always giving credit to the man. Again, that credeer. No, the credit doesn't go to me. I'm just the pass-through. You can believe me because you believed in God.
You know, these guys, these brokers too, they're not just in that one little community. They bounce on the communities outside of there and then beyond, because this guy has a couple places in Cincinnati as well, a couple of these securities places. So this is it's mind-blowing to say the least.
Yeah, it's a very few select people that actually do know what's going on at the very top, and those are the ones we need to be speaking with.
But
those are the ones that are putting the chips on the table, and we need to let them know, hey, we're going to double you up.
Right.
Believe me.
So I've got this gentleman's phone number and cell number. I am probably going to give this gentleman a call at some point here. Just make sure I got all my ducks in a row.
Yeah, line your questions up, make them short questions, make them succinct questions, and make sure that they're not an accusatory sense, but more of a corrective sense, and make sure just a few of them is all you need.
Well, one key factor in the 65.
We start overthinking things, and that's where we lose it. Keep it simple. Go ahead.
Right. Well, that one key thing in the Series 65 license is that they can conduct business with the public. I would, I would assume the public would mean the people.
Well, yeah, but they don't. There's a what I call a predecessor to the predicate. In logic language, predicate would be two terms used together. You've got the second one is the predicate, which is a predeterminer to the predecessor, the word that came before it. So here we have public. Well, what kind of public? Is it the general public? Is it a particular public? Or is it a specific public? Those are three different logic paths. So they've placed a comment in the language that doesn't allow a direct logic. It's ambiguous. And we need to unambiguate it by putting a predecessor in there. That's what I call correcting the grammar. They're using certain language that destroys the concept of the logic.
So you invoke on a document. Listen to my wording. So you would, in this scenario, invoke, and you don't put and, invoke a change.
Yep.
That's it. And what a change being invoked is not like, hey man, it's a change, which in punctuation, a change is document form. Then you would write on for what you want in that document. And it's weird. It's the speaking. I don't know how to describe
it. It's invoke. You used a perfect term there. Invoke. And when it comes to invoke, it's in and then voke, which is vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
In vocabulary. That's jurisdiction. The right words. Invoke the right words.
Write yourself a contract. That's how I learned. And with that type of wording, it's almost an impossibility and impassibility.
That's from Investopedia.
I don't know what it's from. I just started writing that way and started writing documents that way, and sending them to people.
Yeah, I was talking the language I was reading from.
Try writing yourself a document of doing what we're talking about. Your own document. It's a trip.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's why I did that that outline for Hitler's willing executioners. You know, I'm working on that already. I don't even have anything else going, but my intent is to establish a private contract with private placement with the Grout Museum as part of the National Heritage Community pride, whatever you want to call it, about the 5 Sullivan brothers and the reason we went through World War II and the results and all that. And here we are in modern America acting just like Hitler's willing executioners. So we need to educate people. And that is to help educate them to return to their morals, because otherwise we're going to end up just like Germany in before the Nuremberg trials and expatriating millions of people off of this land. That's not the way this system should be working. We should be working it, bringing the true words.
And we've let it go for so long that I found it. Listen, I don't want to go after an individual at all, but anybody that can impose a statute, a code, a regulation, a rule, something upon your being, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the janitor. If he has that ability, then he has a bond. And if he's working somewhere, they have one. That's what we're talking about. I believe if you take down a group, it's like they don't learn, and it continues because everybody got punished. When I started attacking these, and I call it attacking because it's like a war. These bonds at an individual level, the clerk, the cop, the sheriff. I started seeing more results because that bond at that level is the same as the top level. It's worth millions. Fuck, a lot of money.
We get to that. We get to that. We get to that.
That person, they fire them instantly. Gone.
Well, yeah, that's where we get to the extrinsic and intrinsic values that I was talking about. If they're going to lay $73,000 on the table as an intrinsic value to their document, then I'm going to put my intrinsic value on mine, and we can equally exchange them as extrinsic.
You're looking at it wrong. I promise you, I did that. I tried that. No, your document is that's you. Anytime you open your document up, which is your trust, I don't care how we look at this. Anytime you open your document up and submit it, you've taken, let's look at it, power. You've taken some of your power and given it, put it out there. Nobody's hit it.
That's what I'm saying, though. Your trust is invaluable. Your trust is in
power. Never to give our bond. We attack their bond. They already know at this level. They know your value. They know
the broker's the only way to execute the bond, though, ain't it?
No.
And the trustee and the indentured trustee must go after them. They're bankers and brokers.
And that SEC agreement that we went over the other day is assigning the SEC as the trustee over all of the securities instruments. That is in itself a private placement contract with the SEC. Now, they're the ones that provide all the securities, which are all those bonds. Obligations and other securities of the United States includes all bonds. That's bonds from the local level all the way up and down.
Right.
So
and I'll clarify, those series licenses are state level.
Hold on. So your trust is invaluable, but the contract that you make has that value. That's where you double up their surety.
You're attacking their bond. That is the insurance policy. You don't even.
No, you're not attacking. No, listen, brother. You're not attacking the bond. You're attaching. You're attaching the bond.
You are putting a claim against it. We're giving authority. We take it. Actually, literally, that's what you do.
Right. You have a rightful claim against their claim.
You endorse it, you send it off to the Treasury, and with the reason why you're submitting this. That's it.
Because they have an inauthentic claim, which allows you to come forth with your claim to rebut their inauthentic claim based on presumptions.
What allows it is me. I created that. They didn't have anything to do with it. I created that. Nobody allows me to do anything. And that's
they created the presumption.
That's okay. They can presume
Right.
all they want, but my power is in my documents. What I submit is it stands before me.
Right, and that's what other people don't understand. That's what
I don't use their laws and shit.
That's what other people don't. But Robert, that's
Securities of America has both.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. That's part of the problem, is that there's a presumption laid, and the general population, a very large portion of it, believes it to be true. Those of us that don't place that value in it, and in that we can show them our value as that true creditor. That's all we're doing, is flipping the tables through the paperwork. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, no, I was just adding that those securities at America advisors, they have both the CRD numbers and the SEC numbers.
Yeah,
because there's where the exchange is going.
Yeah, who certified it? The SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's finish up this one, and then I got some shorts we're going to go over.
A pension. And as we were reporting on this case, Phoenix also tried to subpoena our raw reporting. We argued in court the city subpoena was clearly retaliation, an attempt to scare away victims and sources from speaking to us. And in the end, Phoenix lost, wasting.
Came back with retaliatory intimidation tactics. This is what I'm talking about, folks. And they did this against a national news company, and that is sedition and treason. At the highest level, they're trying to prevent your right to know, because somebody is honestly speaking out on it. So let's get into these shorts.
I'm getting a baseball bat, and I'll be right back. Call the police, please.
The police are on their way. She's calling the police.
That's good.
They're going to deal with this. It's not up to you to deal with this, sir. You can't assault me because you're hurt with your feelings.
No,
please, you can either do one.
Are you videoing that right now?
I don't know. Am I?
I don't know. But
that's right. You don't know.
You're going to get hurt.
That's a threat. And this guy has every right. The guy told him, you're going to get hurt. After he went out to his automobile, car, vehicle, whatever you want to call it. I'll call it vehicle, and because this is a bitch-ass slave. Doesn't know a fucking thing. And look at this guy. He's in his upper years. This guy ought to know better with his moral ethics, that something is seriously wrong. But no, he's looking like he's about 70 years old, and he's still acting like a fucking child. Pay attention what comes up next.
You don't know. So you're willing to assault me for something that you don't even know about.
Turn it off.
Think about that. Think about that before you commit a fucking felony, sir. I'm going to tell you what. Put it down. Put it.
I thought that someone who was taking my picture was going to post it somewhere would have to ask my permission to do that.
Not when you're in public, sir.
Not when you're in public, sir. When you're in public, everyone has the onus probandi of providing privacy. So this is one of those things where they put on those store doors, masks not allowed, because people used to rob them by walking in and wearing a mask. So because they were covering their privacy. Well, then all of a sudden, after decades of having those signs on those stores, all of a sudden the government decided everybody had to wear a mask. For different reasons, of course. It wasn't for your privacy, it was for your safety. See, this is the delusion that we live in. Nobody wants to get on the real topic, your privacy. There's a distinct difference between private and public. And when you're out in the public, you have the onus probandi of providing your own privacy. Otherwise, there's an expectation that anyone that can observe you can automatically, whether they have a recording device or not, they can use their own digits to record it. Just because we have modern technology doesn't violate that freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and everybody else's right to know, which is the basic thing here. This man doesn't fucking know. It's time to start learning. It should be obvious.
Sir, the basic rule is this: if your eyes can see it in public, you can record it. That's just so. Listen,
I was out of line.
I'm not.
I'll give him credit for that. But notice, it's such a complacent, I was out of line. Whereas before, this man was aggressing him with a weapon. So where's that emotion now? Now it's a blank look and a blank emotion.
I don't want to press charges against you.
I was out of line. I'm getting a baseball bat.
See, that was, even though he somewhat apologized, I still see it as kind of somewhat unapologetic because he had no emotional or moral connection to it until an afterthought. And now he knows. But do you think he's going to go around saying anything about it? Or rather be embarrassed still because he's still in his feelers and he got hurt. So now he's not going to talk about it. It's time to start talking about this shit, people.
Ow, 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 ow. I got it. Ow. I got you. Ah. Okay, hold on. By the numbers. All right, let go of your fingers. Let go.
This says it's a pro-Palestinian protester arrested after blocking traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge. You don't have the right to violate other people's rights because your feelers got hurt. Do you understand? And this is the length these people will go to. Concreted a pipe in there with a hole drilled in it so he could grab onto a steel rod and sit there, and they would have to separate him first from this barrier.
Let go. Let go. Let go. Ow, they're twisting it.
And this is how pussified these motherfuckers are. Ow, 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 ow. He's twisting it like it's hurting his hand. Bitch, you better fucking put this motherfucker in an insanity cell for the rest of his life. Because if you don't, he's going to come back out and do the same fucking shit. This is fucking insane, and it is evident right here.
Let go. Let go of the bar. Let go of the bar. Let go.
All he's got to do is let go of the bar. His fingers are open. All he's got to do is let go. So he cannot possibly be in pain, and they cannot possibly be hurting him. He is lying in his emotions to gather up attention as an attention seeker, looking for everything he can to make his life comfortable by pointing out other people are violating his rights while he's physically violating other people's rights.
Go to the bar. Come on, let go. Stop. Let go.
An inauthentic claim.
The bar. My hand. Let go of the bar. Stop squeezing my hand. Let go.
Put a little heat on there. He'll open up.
Cement him there.
Yeah, stop squeezing my hand. Stop twisting my hand. They're not even touching his hand.
The rebar is cutting the inside of my hand. Stop.
Cement him there and leave him.
Stop, Brian. Stop. 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 Let go of the rebar. Stop. You're hurting me. Let go of the rebar. He's free. He's free. Take him out.
There he goes.
Okay. Set on the bike.
Oh, how come he's not screaming now when they're putting the torture cuffs on him? Maybe he hasn't been paying attention to Chili and the rest of us, huh?
He needs to be seen by a doctor.
I need to be seen by a doctor. I need to be seen by a doctor. Bitch, you fell and skinned your knees and went to mom. You didn't need to see a doctor then, you fucking pussy. Sick of this insanity.
Let me ask you this. You get a ticket on September the 30th? I said.
And I like Carl Miller. He likes to make things very poignant and succinct. Very clear questioning.
Yes, sir. He said, well, let me ask you this. Do you have any plates on your car? I says, no, sir. And I don't intend to get any. And now, of course,
he stated his intent.
So all the people in the court, oh, this guy's going to jail. Why this? This is going to be good. He says, I assume you have a very good reason for that.
I assume. The language is specific. These judges know it. I assume you have a very good reason for saying so.
I said, yes, sir, and I shut up. I waited. He said, Can I hear it? I said, well, Your Honor, I said, I travel at the common law. I have a right to travel freely and unencumbered pursuant to Shapiro versus Thompson, and that right is so basic it doesn't even need to be mentioned. The state of Michigan arbitrarily and erroneously converted my right into a privilege and issued a license plate and a fee for it. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania says no state may convert a secured liberty into a privilege and issue a license and a fee for it. And if they do, Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, Alabama says I can ignore the license and engage in the right with impunity. That means
engage in the right with impunity. So this is the same thing with the trespass that's inauthentic claim. I can engage in my travels with impunity them in their false claim of trespass. I still go back and forth across that parking lot, and I do so any fucking time I want.
you can't punish me. The judge starts reading the ticket. Told officer he'd just been waiting to get this ticket so he could fight it and beat it all the way to the Supreme Court. He laughed. He says, motion granted, and he ran off the bench.
Because he knew that Carl Miller was going to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court, and that would prove that it would be an inauthentic claim, and Carl would win.
What'd you say?
I said you gotta go.
Who are you?
You gotta go. The boss said you have to go.
One of the most passive, aggressive motherfuckers I've ever seen. Using a security badge, not a police enforcement, a security badge, to try to intimidate somebody with a camera while he's keeping his voice real low. Passive, yet making intimidative kind of remarks.
He's been hanging out with Joe.
You fucking cuck.
Biden, that is.
Excuse my language.
Who are you? Allied Universal?
The boss said you have to go. I'm just doing my job, but the boss said you have to go.
Yes.
And your name?
Come on.
Come on, what?
So you one of them?
Why are you saying I'm one of them?
I'm one of them. I'm one to be like recording it. I be watching a lot of videos. I see this, but you're making people feel uncomfortable.
You making people feel real uncomfortable. Now, wait a minute. What about all those cameras in that office you work in? Those are comfortable cameras, but this one here is uncomfortable. Can you distinguish the difference? Can you tell me distinctly why this camera makes you uncomfortable? Is it because it's going to be posted to YouTube? Does that mean those cameras, even though they're in public, have some kind of privacy to them? I don't think so. See, that's where they're wrong. You can walk into any public building and request a Freedom of Information Act request for all footage of your attendance in that building. This is your right. And it's called the right to know, as well as your right to express yourself. Again, I say it's my singular right to express and speak of what I observe. Greatly and more importantly is everybody else's right to know, because that is so much more numerous than I am by myself. Two or more witnesses in my name. So the more is the imperative part we have to understand. Again, they placate for the general public safety at large, the larger portion of the majority. They're going to lock you up and keep them safe in their comfort and convenience, so they can talk quiet with a security badge on and tell other people you can't do that.
Yeah, so who's the boss that says I have to go? Why is that?
What you mean? It's privacy.
Oh, no, there's...
What do you mean? It's people's privacy. See, he doesn't know the onus of probandi of maintaining your own privacy. That's an individual thing. And when you walk into a public building, they're public servants. So they're supposed to maintain the privity of, or the onus probandi of privacy of private information that they are holding as trustees, so that they don't violate the trust in their contracts.
Why is there a camera? There's a camera over there in the corner of the office.
That's for security.
Why would
That's my security.
No.
That's my security. What about my security? What about me being able to create a record so that if I see something that is violation of my rights or whatever, and you try to cover up because of your security, and delete footage and shit like that. This is imperative, again, not to my right to observe and record, but the inherent intent of expressing that individually myself, so that others may know, a greater multitude may know.
Not security. Recording people. So you can only record people if you're security? That doesn't make sense. What'd you say?
So you gotta go.
Who are you?
What do you think about that? What do you guys?
This situation right here?
Yeah. Do you guys realize you have the onus probandi of providing your own privacy in public?
This situation shouldn't have occurred. Both sides are wrong. The guys with the camera, why would I even put myself in that situation? I already know the answers to what I'm asking this guy. The guy doesn't know. He's going by what he was told by his employers. He should be asking questions that matter. If he's going to do this, like, where do you stand on it?
Well, and I think what we miss in these shorts, though, guys, is that some of these videos are longer and there is other concept, but these shorts are just pointing out specifics. So I imagine this guy did go in. Who is it? This is a regular audit, Long Island audit, and I'm sure he went in with a specific intent for some kind of freedom of information request or something. But again, it's just because it's a short clip, we don't get the full context. So I agree with you. In that context, it might seem like both of these parties are wrong. But we know the public servant intent under that public trust is supposed to be specifically be for the beneficiary as an obligation.
You're over everybody, basically.
Absolutely. And we shouldn't have to do these audits. We should be able to go in and tell them, hey, you're doing this wrong, and they say, oh, I'm sorry, and realize it and take upon that knowing, so that they too can become better people. That's what most people don't want to do. They want to remain in their comfort and convenience, because staying the same means they don't have to change and everything comes the same every day, and it's a routine. That's a problem with the time clock and a yearly schedule like we've got with that calendar. If you follow Mother Seasons, you don't care about particularly by the day, but by the season, because you can tell when it's springtime and you know it's time to prepare. So you start preparing. It's not done on one specific day. Everybody does things differently. Even the animals. What is it? Philadelphia Phil comes out on a certain day. They bring him out and determine whether the season is going to be good or bad by his shadow. Come on, people. Really? So the next one.
This guy was checking out some police cars parked in a public place. Then a cop approached him asking for his ID. But the man knew his rights, so he refused, and things escalated.
You give me that policy or whatever that I can't walk around the vehicle? It's not a policy, it's government vehicle. Okay, but...
It's not a policy, it's government vehicle, so I'm going to make one up as I go. See, this is the fucking narcissism that these people have. They think they can make up something on their own, and then pose it as law, when they recognize it's not even policy. See how ignorant this is? And this is Inspector Darkmind. He's another good one. Inspector Darkmind.
But stay away from it. Okay. I have every right to walk up to these vehicles.
What's your idea?
I don't have it. I don't have to give it to you.
You're going to give it to me.
Am I?
You're going to give it to me.
This is some college play that they're doing.
Oh, I don't think so, brother.
I'm just saying, it could be. We never know.
Yeah, but let's not take it like that, because I've seen too much of this shit happening. I see it myself. I go to city council meetings, and I haven't gotten anything on recording yet. And the first city council meeting, they fucking video.
Yeah, I've been arrested over it. I know.
But I see how these people act, and
they're allowed to act that way.
It's astounding. Absolutely. That's why I say we got to start doing this.
Yeah, okay, what?
Not particularly in this sense, again, But these are videos that people are doing that show us the corruption, and it's corruption of the mind, heart, and soul.
You suspect me of breaking.
You're walking around our vehicles looking into them.
Is this public property?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I have every right to be
I told
here.
you to give me your ID.
I do not have to.
Yes, you do. What it is, I'm going to do a police report to figure out who you are.
Okay, is it illegal?
Yes, you do. You're going to give me your ID. I don't have to give it to you. Yes, you do. Now he's already contradicted himself and says now that he's going to do a police report and find out who he is. That's a motherfucking threat. You're not supposed to be using that public information or those public record systems to find out who somebody is so you can go get them. This is their mentality. They are predators.
Legal?
I didn't say it's illegal.
Okay, am I being detained?
Yes, right now.
Okay, so for what crime?
I need your information.
Oh, yeah, I'm not giving it to you.
Okay.
You can call a supervisor out here. Okay.
Let me finish talking.
I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent so I am being detained. Therefore, I have nothing else to say to you. So, I guess he called you out? All right, so I'm here. So I go around. I look at the cars. So am I still being detained, sir? Okay.
I don't know why he cut that out. So, again, Robert, I see how you can think that this is a setup because that was a bad thing to cut out right there. But the basics of it is that evidently the guy turned around and told him, okay, we'll see you later.
He handled it wrong from the beginning. Truly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It shouldn't be a confrontation thing. And when you're asking questions, they should be very guideline questions that you reiterate every time. Stand your
Always
ground.
speak with the commander. I need to speak with your commander, not a lieutenant commander.
Yep.
And I'm cool. I'll wait. Just kick it.
Yep. And the last
you're law enforcement, you're not policy enforcement.
The last one I got before we get to Dalton.
If you think that I'm breaking the law and you want to cite me a law that I'm breaking, I'll gladly comply. But I'm not breaking any laws. I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm engaged in a constitutionally protected activity.
Yeah, I get all that.
Yeah. I don't need any help. I was actually just going to film the signs over here and film in the publicly accessible areas and then be on my way when I'm finished filming. I'm not going to film, across the counter or any type of. Yeah. Well, yeah, because. Well, this is a public building, sir. You keep saying it's.
So we don't know what you're filming. You keep turning. Well, that's because I'm filming. I'm filming everything. Well, what can we help you with? Well, that's their problem. They think because you come in filming that you're looking for help or that you need help, and they're going to be the one to help you by telling you to get out. That's not what your job is. And you certainly show your incompetence in the knowledge of how this shit's supposed to work because you don't know.
Private. I understand that.
And they use that very example. I don't know what you're doing to prove they don't know.
I don't want to go in circles with you, sir. I have a constitutional right to news gather in public buildings. I'm not going to stop filming. It's a constitutional right. He's law enforcement. If he tells me I'm breaking the law, I will if he says he's going to arrest me and I'm breaking the law, I'll stop. You're law enforcement. You're not.
So we have a law enforcement that's standing there letting it happen because he already knows that you have a right to film in public. Otherwise, he would have come in like some others do and just automatically put him in cuffs. So let's get on. I've got Dalton update. Remember Dalton, Illinois, and Tiffany Henyard. First, we're going to take a look at Tiffany Henyard's top lieutenant, who was indicted last week. He was indicted last week, and then the FBI came in and swooped in on Dalton and that other township. Oops.
Day a top, as WGN Investigates was first to report today, a top aide to Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard has been indicted for bankruptcy fraud. It comes amid ongoing questions about Henyard's spending and leadership.
And legal experts say it could be the first sign that the feds are trying to get people to share what they know about potential government corruption in the South suburbs.
Let's be smarter than that. This is not just The Price is Right.
Despite sitting next to Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard at countless meetings, the feds allege Keith Freeman not only failed to report his income from the village, he actively lied about it. Freeman is Henyard's top aide in both Dalton and Thornton Township. As part of a personal bankruptcy case, he was required to report his earnings. But this indictment on one count of bankruptcy fraud says Freeman falsely stated he only worked for the township and made just over $99,000 last year. Prosecutors say he tried to hide his Dalton earnings via a pass-through company, which brought his income to $195,000 last year.
So how can you be on the Dalton City Council and not report it? That was one of the dumbest things to do. Report income from somewhere else while in public office and check out where else.
Year. They further allege the village of Robbins has a claim against Freeman for more than $90,000 he took without authorization from a.
So he claimed he claimed income for village of Robbins while not reporting Dalton.
Previous post he held as village administrator there.
This is long coming. If a person can lie on their own financials, what do you think they're doing for the village?
Nobody is untouchable. That's what I want to say. Nobody is untouchable. So if this is just the first domino to all of them falling, let it happen.
Dude, Jay Bradley, how you feeling?
Freeman.
Yep, if this is the first domino to the rest of them falling, then let it happen. And that's what we're doing, folks. We're going to start letting this happen. But the only way it can be let to happen is you have to let go of your belief. And like I said, don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government, for crying out loud, don't believe your neighbor. Do your research. We need help in research and exposing these people. And like they said, I'm seeing it myself, where we've got a lot more of these officers and officials being thrown in jail nowadays. So we're going to start seeing more of those videos here. I'm going to start showing those.
Is a key player in our reporting on Tiffany Henyard because of how many roles he plays for her. In addition to the Dalton and Township jobs, Freeman also, for a time, was the registered agent of the Tiffany Henyard Cares Foundation.
But there's no foundation.
Oh my! The registered agent, the indentured trustee for the Tiffany Cares Foundation, the one that's been committing all of the fraud and taking all those trips and everything under some kind of charity program where they're using tax dollars to go make a march across a bridge for her and 4 of her cronies and then write it all off at an exorbitant amount. This is ridiculous stuff, folks. So let the dominoes fall.
Illinois, moving like we move, shaking, moving like we doing right things.
While Henyard's namesake charity claims to help cancer patients,
and she's under that
investigation
on.
Yeah, this is all. Yeah, she's the mayor. That's what I told the mayor here. You're the executive. You're the principal, and everybody else is your subordinate. That surety bond covers you, and under that surety bond, you have a duty to make sure all those other officials are trained properly and have competence. So that goes.
They're copying that and endorse it and turn it into the treasury.
Yes.
His bond.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You match it up with an indemnification while you hold the warrant for that surety bond at double the price.
Well, you're opening up the whole goddamn thing.
Most of its early money from taxpayers and has failed to file required paperwork showing how it spends its money.
How come you don't respond to my emails?
There you go. There you go. Huh? There you go. That's all you're getting from me. That's all you're getting from me today.
How come the charity hasn't filed its financial disclosures about how money was spent?
How would I know that? That's a good question.
Let go of my hand.
How would I know that? That's a good question, though. You're the fucking registered agent. You better know. This is the problem I have with the Postal Service. They're the registered agent. None of them know. And if they say they know, it proves their incompetency. Again, they're supposed to have the knowledge, skills, and all that to be able to fulfill the position that they've been hired for.
For months, WGN Investigates has reported on questionable conduct on Henyard's watch, including unexplained travel, including first-class airfare and fine dining on the taxpayer's dime. Credit card statements show Freeman was on many of the trips, including one to Las Vegas, where another Henyard aide now claims a Dalton trustee sexually assaulted her. Others accuse Henyard of using Freeman and other government employees to retaliate against her opponents. Court watchers say the feds could use the bankruptcy charge against Freeman to get him to cooperate in other investigations.
And this goes to the concept in relations to the Brady list, guys. I want to make it very well known here that if they've got a Brady's list for the police officers, what the fuck do they have set up for people like this? So that when they get pulled out of office and have shown to be corrupt and have moral turpitude, then what do we do about them to prevent them from getting back into that civil authority situation in any situation, whether it be a manager at McDonald's, you know, a direct involvement with the financial portion of a business. See, that's what we're talking about. It's still that debt instrument under insurance and tax schemes. That's what we're trying to prevent, is that debt, and that debt is being perpetrated by the corruption. So we have to help prevent that corruption from entering back into that system that's perpetuating it.
When the feds are looking at a larger scheme or relationship, oftentimes what they have to do is go for people who are below or the lower part of the food chain, get them for something, charge them with something, because that's the leverage they need to be able to sit down with that person and say, now, if you help us, life might be good for you. If you don't.
Called throwing people under the bus. They're going to find the guy that's standing right in front of the bus that's already fucked up. You can't get out of it. Now we got you. Now we want to know who else is protesting and blocking our right to travel. Let the dominoes fall.
You're in a lot of trouble. Now, what do you want to do?
So I said one down, about 25 more to go.
Man, I like her glasses. Just saying.
No comment this afternoon from Keith Freeman. His boss, Tiffany Henyard, said through a spokesperson that she's aware of the indictment but won't comment due to the ongoing investigation. So we don't know whether taxpayers will continue paying Freeman's 2 salaries despite today's bankruptcy fraud charge.
So we notice that not only does Tiffany Henyard have 2 salaries of over $250,000 a year, but now her trusted agent also has 2
you really
salaries.
want to be a CEO, want to be an entrepreneur.
Now, I don't know what happened here. Oh, yeah. This is federal grand jury issues subpoenas to Dalton's supermayor and allies in criminal investigation, and this was just 7 hours ago. So we're going to get an update of the dominoes falling. Now, this is one I haven't watched. Like I said, it was just posted 7 hours ago. It's 17 minutes long, and we're going to finish up with this. And all comments and anything, let me know. Just stop me, and we'll talk about it. Otherwise, like I said, this is the first time I've seen it. I'll make comments as I go, and you're welcome to do so as well.
Village Hall Friday afternoon. They're directed to the Village of Dalton's custodian of records, assigned to testify before a grand jury. And
Custodian of record, and this is why I talk it. It's about correcting the record. And like we're talking about here, the throwing people under the bus, it's the custodian of record that's going to be ultimately liable because they're the ones holding the record. And so when it comes to the clerk, the judge, the prosecutor, that's who we subpoena, is because we're subpoena the record, and they're the holder of the record, and they're going to interpret the record. Okay? Hope that explains why I'm going after the record. That custodian doesn't know what's going on, but they will testify to what's in the record and make the clarifications without any liability, because they're just holding it. It's the other people that entered it. The issuer, the clerk, is the one that issued it. county prosecutor is the one that originally brought the claim. And then in their coordination or conspiring with the clerk, entered in a case for re-enumeration. The prosecutor has his own case number. And then when he hands the information over to the clerk creates another case number and assigns a judge.
That's our first confirmation that a federal grand jury has been impaneled to investigate allegations of corruption in Dalton.
And let's not forget, her number 2 was just indicted on fraud.
As WGN Investigates was first to report today, a top aide to Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard has been indicted for bankruptcy fraud. It comes amid ongoing questions about Henyard's spending and leadership.
Then lastly, the news media just got new credit card receipts showing that Tiffany Henyard and company spent $100,000 traveling lavishly around the country.
Tiffany Henyard is the mayor of Dalton. She is also a supervisor.
She makes $250,000 a year on the 2 different jobs, and she spent almost half of that, 2/5 of that, just on trips in 1 year off the taxpayers. So that pretty much means she brought in over $350,000 plus whatever else. You know, that Tahoe was one other thing, you know, $150,000 there. So start adding the numbers up. And this gal just doubled her income off of those 2 jobs by taxpayer expense shit. Sickening.
Of Thornton Township. Credit card records show Henyard and her team have charged taxpayers more than $102,000.
$102,000, and she's demanding the taxpayers pay her the taxes. Pay me my taxes, is what she said. Sick.
$1,000 for trips they've taken in the past year. That includes a stay at the Four Seasons in Atlanta and a $13,000 hotel tab in New York City.
All right, let me get you all caught up.
And yes, this is Nate the lawyer. So go check him out. He does a good job on breaking things
Welcome
down.
to Dalton, Illinois, where the population is about 20,000 and the median income is about $28,000 a year. Now, the town is run by this woman, Tiffany A. Henyard. Now, she makes about $300,000 a year, split between her 2 jobs as supervisor of Thornton Township and mayor of the village of Dalton. Now, before she became mayor, she owned a couple of burger joints and she was a trustee for the village of Dalton. A couple of years before she became mayor, she was also arrested for breaking into cars in Chicago and bonded out on $1,500 bail. Now, I have many videos on Tiffany.
She's from the streets, folks. She's a fucking street thug, breaking into cars like a 16-year-old trying to steal shit. Shows you her mentality. This is sickening that people believe, adults believe they should be hiring such people, voting such people, electing such people into offices of ultimate responsibility over their own fucking lives. This is fucking insanity. Excuse my language. I just cannot believe how idiotic people are.
Tiffany A. Henyard and her exploits. So I'm not going to go over all of them here. But to give you an idea of who this woman is and how she operates, here are a few examples. Now, Tiffany A. Henyard runs this town like if she is a gangster. Here she is dressed up as crack-dealing gangster Nino Brown, playing Bitch Better Have My Money by Rihanna, telling taxpayers it's time to pay their money.
And I'm looking for that Rihanna. That's what I'm looking for. This is what they told me to tell y'all right here. Every single resident.
Is this some kind of joke?
Pay me what you owe me.
Pay me what you owe me. This is the mentality of a psychotic bitch in a position of authority, and it's only because of that position of authority that now she makes the claim that you owe me in public. Whereas before, she obviously thought other people that don't even know her and she doesn't know them owed her something because she broke into the cars to steal it. This is pathetic, people. You gotta do better.
Thank you, DJ.
Now, the big issue that's been going on is that Tiffany A. Henyard has been spending the town's money like crazy, putting them in a $7 million budget deficit. And remember, she's also the supervisor at Thornton Township, and they have a $5 million budget deficit. So now the big issue is transparency. See, the super mayor doesn't want to show anyone how she's spending money. She's essentially keeping it a secret, to the point where the trustees had to sue the super mayor in court to figure out how the money was being spent and even how much money was left.
This is not a dictatorship, and that's the problem that we're having.
Dalton trustee Brittany Norwood says,
and she said that very succinctly, and she is absolutely correct in my opinion. If the mayor locks out the city hall or the city council members from city hall, she is acting as a dictator, saying that she will make the choices on her own. That's dictatorship. Bitch is psycho. I can't believe she was running that city council in that township for so long. I can't believe she was even able to run a fucking business. And I guarantee you that when they start looking at those records, they'll probably find some corrupt shit going on there too.
It's a voted position, right? Correct? Or am I incorrect?
Yeah, the mayor is, yeah.
So she was voted in. Sad.
Yeah. That's why I say I can't believe people would believe so much in other people to do take on a responsibility of running their life and vote somebody like this in because a popularity contest. She runs her whole thing as a popularity contest.
One word I noticed through this whole thing was transparency. And that's a good word for people to look up in contract form and in just life. Transparency.
Yep.
she and many of her fellow village trustees have been fighting to save Dalton.
I am your leader.
They say Mayor Tiffany Henyard is preventing them from doing their jobs and is also blocking them from seeing any of the village spending.
We're asking for credit card statements, we're asking for bank statements, and we're asking for information that help us, assist us as trustees to know how the money is being spent.
Trustee Norwood says some trustees were locked out of the village's finances when they discovered in September that Dalton was $7 million in debt.
We're able to track receipts for spending, and then we shared it with the public. And once we started sharing it with the public, our access was denied.
So now this brings us to Keith Freeman. If Super Mayor Tiffany Henyard is Batman, then Keith Freeman.
And see, that's the distinct problem there. See, what they did was they started sharing it with the public. Well, that's public information already. And because they started sharing it with public, which is something they don't like doing, and that's why we have the Freedom of Information Act, is because there's already a record that they don't want to give it up. So they had to impose a Freedom of Information Act to teach these public officials that, yes, you're supposed to give them that information. So then when they get that information through a city council and they put it out to the public, then we have a dictatorship here where she's trying to shut down the city council, because again, they're allowed information, public information from the public record, and when it gets out there and makes her look bad, now she wants to shut it down. That is the ultimate corruption. That is sedition and treason, period.
We should have taken care of it, though, in the beginning. We had the ability to research her, and we didn't do it. We didn't do our job. So we allowed this to happen. Yeah,
well, yeah, that's the aspect of you have a republic if you can keep it. People don't understand what the republic is. The people, or the power resides in the people.
Yeah, we fucked up. We got to fix it.
Is Robin. Now, remember when we talked about Tiffany Henyard having two positions, one at Dalton and one at Thornton Township? Well, Keith Freeman also holds two positions, one at Dalton as Tiffany Henyard's right-hand man, and also one at Thornton Township as, again, Tiffany Henyard's right-hand man. Keith Freeman is so entwined with Tiffany Henyard, he actually runs her charity, the Tiffany Cares charity.
So she's principal as the mayor, and he's part of the city council. She's principal as supervisor, and he's her second-hand man on the township level. And as the Tiffany Cares Charity Foundation, she's the principal and he's the indentured trustee. Or registered agent.
She set herself up good, huh?
Oh yeah. It's the perfect setup for like the FBI coming in as they're doing and breaking him down, and they've got him broke down in all three of those capacities. And again, it was only because she had the principal powers to delegate him. Now it's principal and agent, and guess what? She's just as culpable, and she's culpable at the full penalty, and he's culpable as an agent at half the penalty. That's what their plea deal is going to be.
Illinois, moving like we moving, and shaking, moving like we doing. Right,
That's right. Henyard mixes her two taxpayer-funded jobs and
see, it's a popularity contest all the way through and through. She acts like a MTV video hoe.
Charity work.
That's it.
That's Keith Freeman sitting next to her at a Dalton meeting where he's the village administrator. Freeman is also an advisor to Thornton Township, and he's the guy listed as the registered agent of Tiffany Henyard's foundation.
Now, Tiffany Henyard funneled tens of thousands of dollars into this charity from both Dalton and Thornton Township.
Chris Gonzalez is the last surviving critic of Henyard on the Thornton Township board. He and other critics say public money has been used to fund Henyard's private charity. They say board members were asked to approve a $10,000 payment to the foundation in 2022, days before a much...
That's definitely RICO. That is most definitely RICO.
Publicized cancer walk from Dalton to Springfield. Thornton Township credit card records show taxpayers then footed the bill for more than $10,000 in hotel rooms along the route.
I saw the video. Township vehicles being used, township employees being used. Once again, were they paid? Were they given comp time or things of that nature? So there's just, I mean, unfortunately, there's a long list. Hotel use, meals.
Now, because no one knew how the money was being spent, the Attorney General's office took the extraordinary step of ordering the charity to stop accepting any funds.
The Attorney General has ordered the foundation to stop soliciting money because it still hasn't submitted tax filings to show how it spent money.
So now, just to recap, Keith Freeman is Tiffany Henyard's...
Still hasn't shown tax documents on how it spent money. This is why the IRS is your friend. These people are, in fact, violating the tax codes through evasion by using private investors who invest and then provide abandonment. This is the conversion. This is the blank endorsement where nobody's ever taught you how to endorse it. And knowing that you're the investor and should get a return on the principal.
Number 2 in Dalton. He's also her number 2 in Thornton Township, and he also runs her charity, which is under investigation by the state. So now when it came over the news that Keith Freeman was under indictment for bankruptcy fraud, things kind of went crazy.
A high-ranking administrator for both Dalton and Thornton Township is charged with fraud connected to an alleged bankruptcy scheme.
Sending gift cards in bulk can be a nightmare. Tremendous is a platform.
And now we're talking about bankruptcy scheme. See, they use that in their individual lives too. I know a lot of people, particularly like President Trump, they filed bankruptcy many times. Trump specifically 7 times now. Think about that. There's something fishy there, isn't there? See, bankruptcy is a cancellation of a deferred debt.
Also completed negotiations with the police patrol, police lieutenants, and the sergeants.
Right here you see Keith Freeman, who sits next to embattled Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard, discussing finances at a recent...
Yes, Sir Greg says charity is a tax position. She will have IRS exemptions, is her name of business. The problem there is that she has a tax position. If you don't have a tax position, you're extraterritorial from them. You're outside of their judicial area. So they can't be determinate in what the value is. When you're in a charity tax position, There's a determined evaluation. That's a tax assessment that's already there. There is no exemption to that. That's what they'll take her back to, because she's committing tax fraud right from the start. Doesn't matter whether her name is her name is a business or what the exemptions are. She's committing tax fraud through that very process.
Recent village board meeting. The U.S. attorney accuses Freeman of concealing assets and incomes from his creditors. He faces up to 5 years in prison if convicted. We reached out to Freeman and various Dalton officials, but have not yet heard back.
Now, the indictment sheds light on Keith Freeman's checkered past. As an example, Keith Freeman worked as the village.
So this is where we talk about that Brady list thing again. How come we don't have some kind of list for that, like that for these people filling these other official offices? So pay attention here.
Administrator for the village of Robbins, which is 15 minutes from Dalton. Allegedly, he received $90,000 in excess of his authorized salary, and the village of Robbins had a claim against him and wanted him to pay them back that $90,000. Then in the indictment, the government lists all of Keith Freeman's lies that he listed on his bankruptcy filing. Here are the list of lies listed in the indictment. Allegedly, he lied to the government when he said he wasn't the village administrator of Dalton. He lied when he said he wasn't getting an annual income from Dalton of $100,000. He also lied when he said he didn't own this company, Government Staffing Incorporated. He lied.
Government Staffing Incorporated. So we have a corrupt man violating the very laws, running such a business, training other people. This is the same thing as the police training video we reviewed here a while back, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where we have police officers out there now training other police officers, talking about their nuts. This is insane.
Lied when he created that fake bank account to dump the Dalton money in so the authorities wouldn't have it. He also lied about the village of Robbins excess salary money that he owed to them. So with all of this evidence, they indicted him for bankruptcy fraud.
As part of a personal bankruptcy case, he was required to report his earnings. But this indictment on one count of bankruptcy fraud says Freeman falsely stated he only worked for the township and made just over $99,000 last year. Prosecutors say he tried to hide his Dalton earnings via a pass-through company, which brought his income to $195,000.
Which, if he opened that account, he still had to provide them with that corporate EIN number. They're tracking everything through the number, you dumb fucks. Quit trying to do this shit. They'll catch you.
Last year. They further allege the village of Robbins has a claim against Freeman for more than $90,000 he took without authorization from a previous post he held as village administrator there.
Notice the language there. Previous post he held. I'm telling you, folks, the language is there if you pay attention. We have to start breaking down the words so we can rightly divide the word of truth. And we got Brown's boy with us and Iman. How you doing today, folks?
Greetings.
Hey, doing good. How you guys doing?
Good, good. What's on your mind, brother?
I just wanted to join just to watch and learn and see if there's anything I can see that isn't picked up.
Awesome. Appreciate it. That's what I'm talking about,
Thank
folks.
you.
What do you got, Iman? How you doing, sister?
It is what it is, brother.
It is what it is. It is what it is. Yes, sir. All right, let's get back to it.
So it looks like Keith Freeman may not be a free man for long. See, now let me give you some insight on how the FBI generally runs its business. All right, so the FBI loves to find the weakest link, someone who they can push their buttons, getting them to
and throw under the bus and let them know that there's a big bus coming.
Flip on the higher ups. And here, Keith Freeman looks like a very easy button to push. In Keith Freeman's case, he was lying about things that were easy to verify, like you work for the city of Dalton. Matter of fact,
exactly. How stupid can you be? That's just, it's so profound that this is what I use to point out that they're obviously incompetent of even thinking logically. How do you think as a public official that you're going to get away with hiding your public official capacity, particularly to the IRS?
You're literally sitting up there every week next to Tiffany Henyard saying that you work for Dalton. So now, surprise, surprise, he gets indicted, and then a couple of days later, a grand jury issued subpoenas to the village of Dalton.
And we are following breaking news out of Dalton, the FBI serving subpoenas. Thank you for joining us at 5. I'm Dawn Hasbrook.
I'm Scott Schneider. We want to start with breaking news tonight. The FBI, as Dawn just mentioned, serving subpoenas in Dalton.
Let's get right to Elizabeth Matthews at the Village Hall, where 4 agents were this afternoon. Elizabeth.
Sid's been thinking about getting dentures for a while. Well, picture this.
Scott and Don, it is all quiet now, but here's what Fox 32 has learned. We've learned that those 4 federal agents paid a visit here at the Dalton Village Hall around 2:40 this afternoon. They were serving, like you mentioned, 2 subpoenas. Take a look at some of this amateur video that was sent in to our news station by a Fox 32 viewer. It appears to show a couple of those federal agents inside.
Notice that said amateur video sent in by a Fox News viewer. So they are using footage that the people in the community provide. So this is another important aspect of why we should get out there and do this kind of stuff, so we can provide footage that would help. Not to confront them about their office or title, but make patent what should be known, and that's that transparency Robert was just talking about. We have to help provide that transparency.
Inside Village Hall.
Now, the first subpoena is going to the custodian of records, which under village law is the clerk. But the clerk, as you know, hasn't been able to get records. So whoever now is the custodian of records, who actually has the records, is now going to have to answer the subpoena and go in front of the grand jury and testify.
They're directed to the Village of Dalton's custodian of records, a subpoena to testify before a grand jury. And that's our first confirmation that a federal...
And she or he's going to get qualified immunity, because she's merely the holder of the record, and they know that she doesn't know the clerk duties, the judge's duties, the attorney's duties, and stuff like that. So the terminology and stuff in the records that she's holding is merely so that she can come before some kind of court like this, if need be, and present the record. Again, why I tell everybody go after that record. Because she won't be thrown under the bus. She's got qualified immunity, and that qualified immunity comes into play against the other officials that know they're being corrupt, and it's going to uncover that. And again, like I said, I think I see the FBI coming after more and more of these officials, and I think that's suggestive that what we are doing in these audit forums is working to some degree. But again, I urge that we should get better at it, and that is in the language.
Federal grand jury has been impaneled to investigate allegations of corruption in Dalton.
Now that we know a grand jury has issued these subpoenas, it's interesting what they're looking for. Now, they've asked for a list of employment records for 28 people in this subpoena. Now, those 28 people are all people loyal to Tiffany Henyard.
One subpoena asked for the personnel and disciplinary files for 29 Dalton employees. Trustee Brown reviewed the names and told us they all have one thing in common.
All of these people are loyal to the mayor. Every last one of them are loyal to the mayor.
Now, this brings us...
And those are people with disruptive backgrounds.
Look, and there's the word loyal. Look it up.
Yeah, and so we're not just talking about the police and that Brady list. We need to be able to help invoke, as you said earlier, that a type of systematic removal of people that are known to be corrupt. You know, it's that fool me once, shame on you. So here's a lesson, learn from it. It's called continued education or furthering education. Fool me twice, shame on me. Now you're done. You're out of office. You're not going to do that no more.
Back to Officer Terry Young. Remember Terry Young? So for those of you who don't remember, in a 2-week period, 2 weeks, there are only 336 hours in a 2-week period. That's 24 hours a day times 7 days a week. Simple math. But Officer Terry Young, he got paid for 303 hours in a 2-week period, which is impossible.
So again, we point out that Brady list thing about corrupt officers, but again, those Brady lists are being dismissed, and these corrupt officers are not only being hired, but they're allowed to continue that corruption, and this is what we end up with, again, at taxpayer expense.
The officers are paid every 2 weeks, which without overtime is 80 hours. But when they're put on Henyard's detail, that 80 hours balloons to well over 100 hours, sometimes 200 hours. And in the case of Officer Terry Young last May, 303 hours worked over a 2-week period. That resulted in a single paycheck of more than $13,000.
How does a person put in
$13,000 in 2 weeks, and I'm going to tell you, folks, about 5 years before my last citation, that about 8 years ago, so a total of about 15 years, I've lived on pretty much $8,000 or less a year. A year. This is the corruption at the highest, where we find people that make that much in 2 goddamn weeks. Where is it coming from? You gotta stop it.
a 2-week pay period, 303 hours? That's impossible. That's impossible.
336
Does he never go to sleep?
In fact, there are 336 hours total in 2 weeks, meaning Young was not being paid for only 33 hours over that period.
Now, to anyone else, that looks like fraud, and it seems like, since he's loyal to the mayor and they're asking for these records, this may be some of the records that the FBI and the federal grand jury.
So 336 hours in 2 weeks, leaving 33 hours or so. That means he got about 2 hours of sleep in 14 days. About 2.5, 3 hours of sleep every day. And that doesn't leave much time for cleaning and shit shower and shaving and all that either, right? This guy's Superman.
Are interested in. Now, the second subpoena actually requests information about Keith Freeman. Remember the guy who was lying on the bankruptcy forms? Well, he had a whole bunch of shell companies, and they want to know if any of his shell companies were getting paid by Dalton.
The second subpoena asks for information about village administrator Keith Freeman, Mayor Henyard's top deputy, including payments, tax records, and any contracts given to a list of companies, some of which are associated with Freeman, according to a search of LLC records.
Now, we know from Keith Freeman's indictment, he's affiliated with multiple companies, including the Government Staffing Advisors, Inc., and he's the owner of Keith Freeman, LLC, doing business as Doodad's Novelty Store. We also know that the Village of Robbins filed a claim against him for unauthorized payments, and he received something like $90,000 above his salary, which he has to pay back to the Village of Robbins.
And so this goes to the situation where not only does he have multiple businesses, I'm wondering how many businesses Tiffany Henyard had, with the burger joints and all that.
Now, some village...
They will go into those and find every detail that is off, and they will nail her for it. Watch.
Credit cards have been released through a FOIA request, and those receipts show that the mayor, who's only making $50,000 a year, has racked up over $100,000 on the village credit card.
FBI agents arrived at Village Hall on Friday to serve subpoenas for the employment records of more than a dozen Dalton employees. Tiffany Henyard is the mayor of Dalton. She is also the supervisor of Thornton Township. Credit card records show Henyard and her team have charged taxpayers more than $102,000 for trips they've taken in the past year. That includes a stay at the Four Seasons in Atlanta and a $13,000 hotel tab in New York City.
Well, this is they're going over more information, some of the same information we saw in the first video.
Township taxpayers also paid for a trip to Las Vegas. Henyard's team has refused to say how all the travel benefited residents.
So, at the end of the day, what do you need to take away from this video? Well, one, Keith Freeman seems to be a huge dum-dum who didn't think that him sitting up there at every village hall meeting next to the mayor saying that he's making $100,000 a year and working for the village, the FBI was just going to not notice that. This is a person Tiffany Henyard has running both Thornton Township and the village of Dalton. So that's scary in of itself. The second thing is that this is a grand jury investigation. So that means we have a grand jury looking into criminal wrongdoing. And when grand juries definitely get impaneled, they generally hand out indictments.
And when this one is impaneled, and like I said, they go through that documentation and it's all financial documentation, it is RICO, and that's what they'll charge these people with in consideration of government affairs. I can state that almost 100%. You watch RICO charges coming from this. I don't think they'll get them for sedition and treason, but I'm pretty sure they'll get them for RICO.
Keith Freeman's indictment from this same grand jury, I am not sure, but I would not be surprised if it's all part of the larger scheme. And also think about this, people. Those 28 people who are loyal to Henyard, who the FBI has gotten their entire employment records from, the city of Dalton, is going to be scary for anyone whose name is on that list. There were police officers' names on that list and other officials. Keith Freeman's name was on that list. That is not a list you want to be on. All right, as always, tell me where I'm in the comment section. Tell me, how long do you think it's going to take for Henyard to get arrested if the FBI finds something? Right now, grand jury subpoenas are going out. One person's already been indicted. I'm thinking 6 to 8 months before we really get something substantive on this Henyard thing, because it seems like things are moving fast. And when you got 28 people whose names are now in the FBI database and the FBI wants to know more about them, I think the fish are about to flip. But we will see. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe to all that great YouTube stuff. My name is Nate the Lawyer.
All right. So what do you think, guys? What is it you can do, and what is it you think we need to do to help with the transparency here? Because not everybody can go out and do the First Amendment auditing and stuff, but I know there's something we can all do in respects to the believing shit and start doing research so we know. What is it in your life that you think you could invoke and start to impart as a first-hand experience to help others? I know Robert's already doing all kinds of stuff. What do you got, Browns boy?
As a first-hand experience to help others in what way? With the corruption and seeing more and learning, the ability to learn faster?
Well, not only that, but to be able to have an effect, to be able to enforce the knowledge so that it doesn't just get passed over and never discussed. See, that's the main thing, is that freedom of speech and freedom of expression is so inherently important. And I see way too many people giving it up for the comfort and convenience, and then sitting in their fear because they think if they speak up, something's going to happen, something bad is going to happen, because they're speaking up against a corrupt government. So that corrupt government is going to come in and squash them out. Well, that may seem so, but again, like I'm telling you, that's a matter of fear versus knowledge.
Yeah, I think that because at the end there, I started remembering that I saw other politicians have done that before as well. I could be wrong, but I think it was the Clintons, maybe. Or I don't know, something. But those stories have popped up in the news, and I know that the news is, in my opinion, it's mostly there to make examples and to be conditioning behavior wise. You got to sit like this when you talk, and you got to, because that lady, she's a wit, but she's sitting there like a normal person,
Yeah, it's the social construction.
Yeah. So sorry.
I can only speak for myself. What's helped me is to look at these people. Listen, it would be my fault if I voted for her or didn't research her before she even became who she is now. So in essence, I created her. Well, we should be having conversations today, right now, like we are, about these people before they're even people like that. We should know who's in our community, who is being elected, and really we should be talking about them before. They should be able to walk in their glory, their light. So therefore, they should be seen in public, and they should give a good presence so that we feel good. And we should be talking about those things because that helps everybody come out of the closet, come outside into the sunshine, whatever you want to call it, and start putting our documents and our truth into what we truly want in life. You know, our word, our record.
Yeah, and that's that competency in civics and social constructions. You have to be able to know how to communicate. You have to be able to know how to interact socially and physically, as well as psychologically. Psychological aspect is the biggest thing. It's that spiritual warfare, and that's what's being destroyed at such young ages through the indoctrination of that public education system that doesn't want us to learn our spirituality. They want us to learn about personalities and stuff, and that's the problem with putting little children into big groups of such diverse personalities before they get to even understand their own personality.
You know what's weird about this? What you just said is, I just found this out. What's one good thing, Trump, I'm not for either one, but one good thing that was put in place was for parents to have the ability to claim all the money that the schools get. I'm not talking about home education because that's part of the system too. I'm talking about the whole thing. Each child gets charged for food, every teacher, every subject, the meals, the hospital, the nurses station. I mean, out of every kid, you're welcome to that. I told my kids about this. It's like, you guys can $4,000 a kid, whatever you want. And I've said this before. It's taking that ownership, starting at that level before they get elected, before they graduate, before they enroll.
Yep.
You know,
absolutely.
And
it's
hard to do. It is because of the situation that we're all in.
Yeah, and that's that trust term. Beneficiary is deemed to be the true owner. So if you're the beneficiary and you're deemed to be the true owner, the best thing to own is the knowledge, because that's truly the true benefit. That way you can protect yourself.
So many roles. Benefit. Yep. I mean, we're also executor. We're also trustee. Depends on the role we play.
Yep.
Well, that's why I always try to follow the money, because I figure that we do have a role in it. So, you know, Keith, are you familiar with the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority?
Well, there's several. Which one are you talking about?
Well, this must be the one beforehand, because it's finra.org. But when you go in there and you talk with their bylaws and things, and that's what that CRD number's about. That's who they have to have that for. And then when you get in there about their procedures and everything, listen to this: service of filing papers. Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. Service of complaint, service of orders, notices and decisions by adjudicator, service of papers other than complaint, orders, notice, or decisions, method of procedures for service, filing of papers with adjudicated procedure, filing of paper forms. So these guys are playing a game on us, and it's just a very select few people that are playing this game, and it seems that they must be in cahoots with one another.
Well, again, I don't think they're
regions.
Again, I don't think they're playing a game, because again, the more I understand it, the more they're trying to make sure that you're competent to understand how the system works before they allow you to use it. See, FINRA, as you're talking about, the financial.
So how is Henyard and these guys converting this to get these monies?
Understand Again, everything on your side is considered an investment in them. That's a principal investment from the private side. The problem is it's being put up for offering of a sale, and that's the sale of a warrant. So now they have a warrant that's attached to you as a surety. So anything that goes out there is going to come back to you and not them. So the FINRA offers a private placement, just like I was talking about with the indemnification. It's all about a private placement, and that private placement is not for sale, and that's what shows that you're holding the warrant. It's not for sale. If they want to put a bet on the table of $73 million and try to buy it, I accept your offer, and I'm going to double it. Now, the investment in the principal is, say the mayor is the principal. Now my investment is in the principal, and his subordinates are subjected to his $73 million investment in the surety. But guess what? If he can't come up with the bet, he loses. Do you think he's going to throw his subordinates under the bus, or do you think he's going to come up and call that bet?
So some things stood out to me.
That's they sing like a canary.
What's his name? Robert said something. He said, oh, and we talked okay, I'm coming from an angle of like getting information to people. Okay, so it's like one is that we could make towns or whatever have meetings on Wednesdays and Fridays or Thursdays and Fridays, whatever. Do they need to dedicate time to freaking meetings, bro? I don't care what they think they're doing in these offices. They need to devote time.
Okay, why don't we change that up and have the people devote the time and have those public meetings?
That's true.
That's who really needs to learn, are all the Kens and Karens out there that don't know the law, and they call the police who say they know the law, and then instead of siding with the guy that's being violated, because it's for commercial purposes, they're going to invest in the guy that's being violated, and then the guy that they're posing to be a protector of is never going to come to court, and neither are they. Because in the meantime, they're going to put it in the name of the state as a plaintiff who is not a real party in interest and has not only not firsthand nor secondhand, but isn't even been noticed as third hand.
And another problem, or I don't want to say problem, but another thing that I see is that like if you have a civil dispute or something in a city, and if you don't talk to the right lawyer, like one time I called a lawyer and they were like, "What city?" And I told him, he's like, "No, I'm not doing that because they eat there, dude. They eat there." So they don't want to crap where they eat. So like there's a little game system there, and then there's another one with nepotism and of lineage, like generational wealth or system in place, and those people. So to get, how could we know these people before they get in? Again, just more time spent on figuring out who these people are. Apparently, that's has to happen. but then they're Rockefeller owned or something, so like they could just like the vote could not even really be a vote. I'm not,
if you really want to get involved in doing stuff like that, what I would suggest, I know you might live in a big city, small, it doesn't matter where you live. You can look up your township. These words are important. Your township is what was started way back when. And anyway, it's still in effect. That township has a bond. A bond was created long ago when people were close and we helped one another. Well, it's transferred into something different.
You guys want to know who founded the town that I live in?
The bond in your township is a value. So with that, there's your funding, and everything's numbers, everything's on paper. And with that, you take that bond and you could talk to the sheriff about it. You can rent a hall, you can rent a park, anything that has to do with that township, you doing good deeds for your township. It may be small, have access to that trust account, and everybody will fall into place. What are they going to say? Oh, fuck you, man. We don't want anything good. They're going to fall into place with you.
Yeah, and see,
and everybody else.
And see, that's where that term "not subject to intercept" comes in, because when you give open access to the account, there are certain people that are given access and others aren't. So when those others try to get access to it, it simply says "not subject to intercept." It won't allow them to go any further. This is part of the blockchain of electronic communication.
Your sheriff's going to back you. Everybody will. That has the authority, because what are they going to say? No.
Yeah, you have
I don't
to
care
give
how hometown it is. They still got to be elected, and they're going
See
to agree
that-
with you.
See, that blockchain in the electronic communications is where you're allowed to put in a notice, principal to agent, notice to principal, notice to agent, notice to agents, notice to principal, so that it goes throughout all of those record keeping systems. Not subject to intercept. See so-and-so for permission.
Keep it simple. Put it in the post office. Post it for a week, 2 weeks, 1 day.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with that, I got to go get a bite to eat before we get on to the 6 o'clock show. What do you got for the words on the way out, guys?
I ain't got much on the way out, but I'll catch you on the next one. What time did you say?
45, 50 minutes from now.
All right. Much love, everyone.
All right. We'll see you later. How about you, Iman? You got anything on the way out?
Well, I do. I just, I kind of not wanted to have it say it on camera. It's some information I wanted to inquire, but.
Well, just send me a quick email then.
Okay.
All right. And
I'm
with
sending
that,
her energy.
yeah, I can feel her frustration, and I can feel frustration in her voice. So, good vibes coming out, sister.
Sending good power to you, good energy.
And with that, folks, you know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. So may God bless you and have a good day. We'll see you here soon. Thanks, now.